What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into TTP Sports. And the Flyers, they've had some, quite a few days off here, basically since the Stadium Series game, which was still dreadful. I'm still thinking about it to this night, not being able to win an outdoor game, only having one outdoor game win in your goddamn existence. It still haunts me to this very night. But they still have the rest of the season to play. They had 3 days off in between before tonight's game against the Chicago Blackhawks, and we know what John Tortorella said after the outdoor game loss to New Jersey, that he was scared shitless. He was terrified of this game against Chicago just because Chicago is not a good team. They're not a good team at all. Quite in fact, they're a dreadful team. Besides having a generational talent in Connor Bedard, this team is bad. They're at the bottom of the NHL standings for a reason, and yes, it's an obvious trap game, and your team needs to be ready for that. And thankfully for today, regardless of how ugly the first period was, because oh boy, that ugly first period was very ugly. I'm gonna be saying ugly a lot because oh my god, it was dreadful. It was dreadful to watch. It was making me a little bit nervous and thinking some bad thoughts here as the rest of the game went on. But thankfully they settled down and they got better as the rest of the game progressed, basically throughout that second and third period. You get yourself a win in regulation. Nice 3-1 victory. Sam Ersson, I thought, played a pretty good game, and I was the one, from the past couple of days, especially in the Stadium Series recap, that was saying, okay, Ersson's been having a sluggish few games here, back to back. Maybe you give him the entire week off just because you have so many breaks in between your games, and maybe you give him that entire week off just to rest. You let Cal Peterson start tonight and just see where it goes. Give Ersson as much rest as possible, especially for the backstretch where his number is definitely going to be called upon a lot. And hey, Torts went back to his guy, went back to Ersson, and Ersson made me eat my shit, basically. And yeah, he proved me wrong. I thought Ersson was very strong today, especially in that first period when Chicago was getting 20 billion odd-man rushes in a row. Seriously, he made a beautiful save on a 2-on-1 cross crease, gets over quickly, makes a beautiful glove save, absolutely robs Chicago of what would probably been a 1-0 lead there. And he was basically good for you, especially because Chicago, even though on the shot list they really didn't have that many shots, especially through the first two periods, they were getting a lot of high dangerous chances in that first period, especially on odd man rushes. And Ersson was there to make those saves. So give credit where credit is due. Ersson bounced back, and especially I think this type of game for Ersson is very important just because you have a very huge stretch of games upcoming, especially this weekend with the New York Rangers in the Wells Fargo Center Saturday afternoon, and then most likely, even though with the back-to-back on Saturday and Sunday, I would assume Ersson gets to start against the Rangers and Peterson gets to start against the Penguins on Sunday. So you're going to be seeing both goaltenders this weekend just because of the back-to-back and the travel. And then you also play Tampa Bay next week as well. So yeah, Ersson, his number's going to have to called upon a lot, and it's definitely important for him to get some confidence from this game, even though it's against a very bad Blackhawks team. They got dangerous chances throughout the night. Connor Bedard is very amazing to watch. He can make plays out of basically nothing, and thankfully you kept him off of the score sheet tonight. So, I believe he had like 10 plus shots on net. So, yeah, Connor Bedard is definitely a very heavy force out there. Imagine when he gets weapons actually on that Chicago team. Just imagine. Oh my God, that I don't want to imagine that just because that'll be absolutely terrifying. Thank God he's not in the Eastern Conference. Thank God he's not in the Metropolitan Division. I don't want to be seeing that every goddamn time. I just don't. Thankfully, you get the luxury of only having to see him twice a season. I guess that's the luxury, twice a season and then possible Stanley Cup final. I guess that's the benefit. I guess, even though Chicago is nowhere get close to a Stanley Cup final in the foreseeable future until they get some better prospects and some better talent around Connor Bedard. But, yeah, Travis Sanheim gets you on the board early. Flyers had some zone possession. They were able to, rag the puck around a little bit, have some zone time, and then basically a very lucky goal. Travis Sanheim off the right side by the blue line fires a one-timer on net, and it deflects off of one of the Chicago defenders in front and into the net. So, yeah, very lucky goal. You can definitely tell on the replay that the shot was going yay wide. It was not going to be hitting the net whatsoever. So, you take those any day of the week. They don't ask how you do it, they ask how many. And that's exactly how Sanheim got on the board there. But then, not that long after, it was basically a breakdown in the offensive zone. The puck was about to go out of the zone. Then you get Cam York and Sean Couturier colliding into each other, which allows Chicago to spring up for a 2-on-1 break. And then Jamie Drysdale is left by himself to guard the 2-on-1. He goes down the ice on his body to try to play the puck, play the man basically, try to take him out of the play. But then Blackwell toe drags around the falling Drysdale, and he manages to put it past Sam Ersson to tie the game up at 1, and that was very quickly after Sanheim made it 1-0, and that kind of very annoyed me there, because it was just like a constant stretch of 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s, breakaways, and yes, Ersson made some huge saves. He's not going to make every one when you're giving the other team so many dangerous chances, so that's just not, it wasn't pretty. The Flyers did definitely get better. They definitely improved more as that period went along. They definitely gained more sustained offensive pressure, and they definitely were the team that controlled more of the puck in that first period. It was just that they were playing stupid with the puck, and they were giving Chicago way too many chances in dangerous areas, just allowing them to rush back down the ice. You just can't be doing that against regardless of how bad your opponent is, you can't be doing that against any opponent, because more times than not, sometimes those situations, they'll make it pay. And thankfully, Ersson was there to stop the majority of them. Sadly, he just wasn't able to stop that one on that breakdown by Coots and York. But you go into the intermission, tied at 1. You bounce back, okay, regroup here, game's tied, fresh, new, clean slate and everything like that, even though I'm sure Torts was not happy with that first period. I'm sure he was giving the team a little bit of an earful. And, Konechny said that in the second period as well, that, he was getting interviewed between the breaks there in the second period, that, they obviously realized that they were not happy with that first period. They realized they did not play that well. They were giving Chicago way too many dangerous chances, especially just, on the odd man rushes. And, hey, got to find a way to bounce back from that. And early on in this second period, Konechny basically doing the entire thing himself, forces a turnover in the defensive zone, brings the puck up center ice, goes from right to left, the right side of the ice to the left side of the ice, manages to fake a pass and then gets around one of the Chicago defenders, comes up on the left side, left circle, and just snipes it past the goaltender, posting in. 2-1. Absolutely nasty goal there by TK. Love to see it. 27th goal on the year. Gives the Flyers a 2-1 lead. And the Flyers, they look like they're getting their legs back. They look like they're starting to take over the game now. And then halfway through the period, grind line out there, Hathaway's out there, Lawton's out there. They're getting their chances. Noah Cates is out there. And then, you put a puck onto the net where Hathaway's taking the eyes away from the goaltender. He finds the rebound. He manages to bury it in front. Bada bing, bada boom. Hathaway gets you on the board. And yeah, I think he was definitely one of the guys that probably sparks some momentum in the favor of the Flyers, because, he is an energy guy. He's going to go out there and give you 150% on every single shift. And if he needs to provide a spark by just making a big hit, making a big play or something like that, that's what Hathaway is going to do. And he made a couple of big hits, but it kind of looked like it sparked the momentum in the favor of the Flyers. So that's what Hathaway does, and he has been chipping in offensively a lot lately, so that definitely is very nice to see on that standpoint. Would like to see him chip in, more consistently offensively, even though I don't want this guy scoring at a point-per-game pace. That's just not realistic for a guy like Garnett Hathaway. But, with his physical presence, with his energy, and the way that he just gives it on every single shift, if he does this every now and then, pot in a goal every now and then, I'd be perfectly happy with that, because I have loved the Garnett Hathaway experience this year. He definitely fits the mold of what John Tortorella is trying to bring for this team, and he is basically fitting that to a T. What Garnett Hathaway is, basically providing you. And yeah, and for the goal scoring, that was basically it the rest of the game. Flyers shut down the rest of the second period, and basically third period it was a 2-goal lead. You definitely were confident in yourselves to shut down this game. I definitely was more confident in the Flyers as they went throughout the game. I didn't think they were going to blow it through this, style of Chicago team because, the Chicago team, they struggle to score goals. The Flyers were giving them power plays and the penalty kill. They've just been the penalty kill, and they do good penalty kill things as the Flyers penalty kill does. So I wasn't worried at the slightest in that fact. And, you did have a chance for an empty net goal at the end of the game, and Scott Laughton just missed a point blank chance. Had a clear view, had a clear radar for the empty net, and he hits it yay wide, hits the outside of the net, and then you see all of Flyers Twitter just react to that. It's like, how, Scotty? How do you fucking miss that? Scotty, really? Scotty just tanked his trade value off of missing that wide open net. Oh, God. Oh, gee. Oh, golly. Oh, joy. But, oh, yeah. Good bounce back for this team. That's basically all they needed. They needed the bounce back, even though I would have liked them to win Saturday in the Stadium Series just because of how important in terms of the standings that game was. I'm not saying the Stadium Series is even though it's supposed to be a gigantic spectacle, at the end of the day, it's still a regular season game, and the points do matter. And it's a Metropolitan divisional game against a team that you are ahead of in the standings by a good amount, and you could have really sealed something there with a win. Instead of being 7 points, it would be 9 points, or instead of being 5 points ahead, because at the time of that game you were 7 points ahead of the Devils, and if you won, it would have been 9 points. You lost, it became 5. But I guess things even out at the end of the day, because yesterday the Devils played against the Washington Capitals and they got demolished 6-2. So you win this game and you're back to that 7-point cushion. So I guess everything evens out in the end. So maybe the whole thing about the Flyers waking up the Devils, maybe that was a little bit of a facade, because the Devils, did not, really provide anything against that Washington Capitals squad, which is not that good. So, hey, you're back to square one, and I frankly don't care at that point. Back to square one, you still control your own destiny, and there's not that many more games left to play in this season. I believe it's like a little bit over 20. So you're in the backstretch now. You're getting closer and closer towards the trade deadline, which is in the beginning of March. I believe it's March 8th. So you still have plenty of time to figure out what you're going to be doing at the trade deadline, what moves you're going to be making. And yeah, there's a lot of talk about, with Sean Walker and everything there, about whether he's going to get traded, whether, possibly the Flyers might extend him or something like that, and then they maybe decide to trade Ristolainen in the offseason or something there, or, all the stuff about Scott Laughton. There really hasn't been many rumors about Scott Laughton lately. It's been more about Sean Walker and just, are they trading him, or are they going to possibly extend him? Because the rumor mainly was that they had some discussions in Toronto, but nothing really progressed from there, and the possibility of an extension, they were just basically talking about it. They were just chit-chatting, and the Flyers thought a reasonable price would have been around $4 to $4.5 million, and Sean Walker wants around $5 to $5.5. That's what the rumor mainly was. I believe it was from Anthony DeMarco of the fourth period. Does a lot of good work for the Flyers coverage. Definitely check him out. But I still think at the end of the day they trade Walker, just because I do think there's going to be teams that value him, especially for the type of season that he is having, and also especially because he is a right-shot defenseman, and there's not that many of them on the market this year, and they come at a very high value. A lot of teams really value right-shot defensemen because they're not that common, and they come at a very high price. And for Scott Laughton, I still think you trade him. I still think he's gone, just because I still think the whole Paling re-signing thing, I think that set us, the writing on the wall for Scott Laughton, and I still think Scotty's gone. I think at this point, even for the Sean Walker talk, I still think it's, Danny Briere playing the leverage game. He's trying to get the most, the most bang out of his buck. He's trying to get the most value back in return for the players. That, Sean Walker, that's having a breakout year basically, and trying to cash in on that. And for Scott Laughton, basically, with the Sean Monahan trade, you could definitely get a first round pick in return for Laughton. And this is Danny's chance to try, to get a second crack at that. And he's definitely once again playing the leverage game. So honestly, I wouldn't even be shocked if this comes down to the wire of the trade deadline. Even John Tortorella said it, I believe, yesterday or a few days ago during one of the practices, that he was, he's been talking to some of the players, just in terms of the trade deadline and what it possibly means for these players, and how, How are you going to be able to handle it once, if there's a possibility that one of your teammates is traded or anything like that? So Torts is definitely preparing them for that case scenario. This locker room understands where this team is at. I'm sure they know they would feel a little bit upset that, a guy that was, a consistent presence on the team got traded, especially in a playoff push. But I think a lot of the players understand where the franchise is at. So they understand the plan. They understand what Danny Briere wants and Keith Jones wants to do. All these players are on board with it. And yeah, I'm sure Torts is preparing them for the inevitable that could possibly happen, whether it's a Scott Lawton and a Sean Walker trade at the deadline or anything like that. I firmly believe Danny Briere and Keith Jones are going to stick to the plan because, of course, Flyers fans on Twitter are going bonkers about, that Sean Walker hypothetical rumor, basically, at this point. Of course, like when things are going fine for Flyers land, Flyers Twitter, the negative people want to try to find a way to be negative. That's just basically what it is at the end of the day. But yeah, I still think Danny Briere and Keith Jones are going to do their thing at the trade deadline, whether that's trade Scott Lawton and Sean Walker or even both. We'll wait and see. The trade deadline's still a few weeks away from now. And, you got a couple of days off here between now and the Saturday afternoon game against the New York Rangers. That's going to be very stressful just because of the way the Rangers especially have been playing you lately the past couple of seasons. But it should be for a very entertaining contest. Hopefully you don't get smacked. I really hope so. Hopefully it's a very tight contest. I would hope so. Find a way to beat the Rangers at home because a lot of Rangers fans are going to travel to the Wells Fargo Center. It should make for a very entertaining game, hopefully. And then you'll also have that Sunday afternoon game against the Penguins on the road. And, just continuing with these nationally televised broadcasts. You had one tonight. It's going to be on ABC on Saturday, then TNT again on Sunday. So the stretch of national television continues with this team. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Not the biggest fan of the national broadcast. Just my honest opinion. But yeah, that's all that it's going to be for now. So like I said, you got Saturday and Sunday against the Rangers and the Penguins. Next Tuesday, the 27th, against Tampa Bay, and that's the final game in the month of February until you go into March. And then you start off the month of March with a back-to-back, Friday the 1st on the road against the Capitals, and then Saturday the 2nd at home against the Ottawa Senators. You also play the Blues at home on the 4th. You go to your little Florida road trip on the 7th and the 9th against Florida and Tampa Bay. A couple of home games here against San Jose and Toronto. On the road against Boston. Back at home against Toronto again. On the road against Carolina. Home against Boston. Home against the Panthers. On the road in MSG against the Rangers. On the road in Montreal. Home against Chicago. And then you go another month of April and then so on and so forth. And looking at the standings right now, just before we close it out here, Flyers, they are 30, 20, and 7 after playing 57 games on the year. So getting closer and closer and closer towards the end of the season, I believe. What is it that? I believe that is 25 games left in the season. So yeah, there's still quite a little bit of hockey left to be played. But Flyers control their own destiny at the end of the day. 7 points ahead of the Devils, 7 points ahead of the Islanders. Even though both of those teams have 2 games in hand, I'm confident in this Flyers squad to get the job done. So that'll do it for tonight, everybody. Thank you for tuning into this whenever you decide to. Don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It does me a great deal of service. And also use the code TTPSPORTS, $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. Great deal. Don't pass it up. Get yourself down to the Wells Fargo Center maybe this Saturday to see some Flyers and Rangers action. So thank you guys for tuning in whenever you decide to. And I'll see you next time.